So this is a video for you if you are new to the tone curve in any kind of software like Lightroom or in Premiere or DaVinci or whatever. This is just my way of trying to tell you how the tone curves work in an easy and understandable way. So let's jump into Lightroom, because I think this is the place where you can easily get the grasp of this, because they have made a lot of changes during the last couple of versions that will show you more what's going on when you are editing with the tone curve. First of all, I will always recommend, if you are going to edit your photos or video, that you use the standard sliders to change like the basic exposure and color before you go into the tone curve. To me, the tone curve is a place where you can more specific go into the points that you want to change that you cannot do with the basic sliders. You do the rough edit on the basic sliders, and then you go into the tone curve to fine adjust. So yeah, let's jump into the tone curve, and you can follow along, and I will try to explain how this works. So for me, the best way to explain this is by using a gradient with black to white, because in this way you can more easily see what's going on when you are adjusting the tone curve. It can be hard if you're looking at an image, at least I think, to really grasp what is the shadows, what is the darkest black points, what are the midtones, what are the highlights, what are the whites. But when you're using a gradient map like this, it is more or less clear that you have the total blacks over here, and then it goes like a gradient towards white until you end at whites. So in between here you have the shadows, and in the middle somewhere you have like midtones, and then you have some highlights, and then you have all whites. So to me at least, it should be easier to understand what's going on. What you do with the tone curve is you can adjust the exposure or lighting, which you normally would use to add or remove contrast of certain parts of the image. Then you also have the color curves, where you can adjust the curves of the color, red, green and blue, and then you can add or remove these colors from certain parts of the image. And what you can affect in the tone curves are the blacks, the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, and then the whites. When we go down to the tone curve, down here, you have these different kinds of modes that you can adjust. And the first one is the parametric curve, and it works the same as the point curve, but it's less easy to adjust with like razor sharp knife precision. So let's reset this and go back to the point curve. The great thing about the tone curve is that it works as a gradient itself. So if I add some points here and I start manipulating the darker area of the photo, as you can see, it starts to work into the lighter area of the photo. So this is really if you ask me, the strong thing about the tone curve is the ability to make these gradient overlaps between white and black. And basic S-curve would be something like this. And you can see now I have these sections, these are the blacks. And if I move them up, I will add light into the blacks. And you can see that here over to the left. Now my blacks are not black anymore, they are gray. And normally if you do this is to fade out the blacks in a photo. You can also go the other way, and then I will add darkness into this area and make the gradient part here more black or bigger. I will go back to like this. And then this is like the shadowy part. And as before, if I turn this up, I'm adding light or white into this area, making the area more gray. And if I go the other way around, I'm adding darkness or black into this area, making the overlap between black and white bigger. And the middle part is the middle part of the photo here, because this is like the midtones, it's like mid-gray. So this is the area I'm going to edit. And the same, I hope you get the point now. If I go up, I'm adding light into the area. If I go down, I'm adding black into the area. And you can see you have to be aware, if you go to either side, it will start affecting the shadows or highlights of the photos. But this is also the great thing about this, because it will make you be able to edit more finer details of the photos, because you can like pinpoint certain areas of the photos that you want to edit. I'll just redo this. And these are the highlights. And again, I'm taking the highlights up and I'm adding more white, making this really white and overexposed. And I can go the other way around and make the photo more dark all the way through. And if we go back again, this is the white point, and if I go down I will add black, and this will essentially just fade out the white. It's the opposite of what we did down here with the blacks. And you can go the other way around and then you will add more white into the white area. I hope you get the point with this, because I think this, at least to me, makes it easier for me to understand what's going on when you have a photo. When you go to the color curves, it's basically the same that you do, but I think just to make this clear, we will go to a photo and to see how this works with a photo. When you look at a normal photo, it does not work as a gradient, because I do not have the all black area over here and then go to white, but a certain part of the photo is considered to be more black or more shadowy, more like midtones, like even exposure or highlights or whites. And I hope you can see on the screen here that the jacket of my son over here is black, but it's still possible to see details. So this should not be all black. The area over here on the hat of my wife might be all black in the photo. And also down here are certain areas that are more black, where you cannot see that much detail. So when I go and adjust the black area of the photo, I should be affecting these kind of areas. And let's just try to pull this up. And at least you can see that we are fading out the blacks. So this area is getting more white. So are the pants, and so is the jacket. And the other way around, if we go, it will start to affect these areas with the blacks. But as I said earlier, the curve works as a gradient. So it is also affecting these areas. And this is, as you see on the white line over here, it's going beyond the 45-degree angle, turning these more black as well, but it's doing a bigger impact on this area because this is where I'm pulling. The other way around, this is the highlights area. You can see things over here are starting to get overexposed. I'm losing detail, and these are the most white parts of the photo, and that's why these are getting affected when I'm using this one over here. And I could turn it down and it will go the other way around, being more dark or grayed out. So if we just reset the channel, and what you normally see is people adding this S-curve, trying to add some sort of contrast to the photo, perhaps fading out the blacks, perhaps fading out the whites, perhaps not. This is more or less your preference about what you want to do. You can, if you don't like to fiddle with this all the time, save this and make it into a preset. Let's reset this, and then let's go into the color curves, because as I said, they have made this easy to understand in the newer version of Lightroom. And you can see now with the red channel, what's going on here is when you move the points upwards, it goes into red. And if you move them downwards, it goes towards green. But where I pull on the line here, I'm still affecting the areas that we talked about earlier. So this is the black points, the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, and the whites. And this should be easier to see now because we have made the gradient here. So let's try to pull up over here in the black area, and you can see I'm adding red into this area, and still it's affecting it like a gradient. So it's also putting in some red into the midtones and towards the whites. And we could like keep moving this, and we will eventually turn the photo more red all over the place. And you could turn it the other way around, and this way we will add a more greenish color into it. And essentially what you can do with the tone curve when you are fiddling with the colors is that you can make some sort of color contrast adding reds to the shadows, for instance, and then putting green into the highlights. And let's just again do the S-curve. So now I'm putting green into the shadows, and you can see just by this it's starting to add a little bit of red into the highlights as well. And if I pull this up, it will add more. And this is just a really basic way to edit color also, but also a way to do this with a really fine precision. To make another example, let's take not the red and green, but let's take the blue and yellow, as you can see, and this is exactly the same. We put some points over here. If I pull up on the blacks, over here the black area is getting some blues into it, and I can pull down on the whites and it will be adding some yellow into it. A thing that's good to know is that these combine, so these would add up. So even though I have done this to the blue channel, if I go and do this to the green channel, I will add this color into the areas as well. So if we make a new line, when I start to change the highlights or the whites with the green channel, it will start to add in some purple or magenta. And the other way around, if I move it up over here, it would add green into the black area on top of the blue I already added. And also with the contrast or exposure curve, it will also keep affecting each other. So when I go about and edit this, it will still affect the colors and add more contrast or less contrast by removing or adding white. I hope that this makes sense to you, because I think this is an easier way to see what's going on. I will just reset this and then I will show you what's going on when you are adding presets onto a gradient, because this is basically the thing you are going to change in a normal photo with a preset. And I will use my own presets here. And by the way, you can buy those if you're interested. It will really help me out. They do not cost that much. Check out the link down in the description if you want to. And let's just go and reset it and take my go-to preset, which is my most sold preset and the preset I use the most. And as you can see, this is, I think it's getting easier to see what's going on here, is I'm adding a lot of oranges or reds into the midtones and also towards the highlights and the black points. So I just think this is a funny way to see actually how presets are affecting the black and whites and the exposure of a photo by using the gradient. And you can see all of my photos are affected differently with the different kind of presets that I'm applying. A lot of brownish reddish colors, some with blue. So just to show how the RGB curves are working, I think we should go back to another photo with some more colors in it than the other one had. This is a photo I took this summer when the Tour de France was here in Copenhagen. So if we make the points here, when I pull up over here on the blacks, the things that should be affected are the dark areas, and they should be affected by adding some red into the photo. And you can see, because the photo is really falling apart now, but a lot of red are being added into certain darker areas of the photos. And this is not looking great, but I think that this will prove what's going on. And if we go the other way around, they should be adding some teal or green into this area, and it's not that easy to see, I guess, but it is going on over here on some of the darker points. Like if you reset the channel, I think you could see that it was being affected over here. It's the same thing with the blue, adding a lot of yellow into the highlights over here on the ground. So if we try to fiddle with this, you see all the yellows being added to the ground and a lot of blue being added to the darker parts of the photo. Anyway, this was me trying to explain you as a beginner how the tone curves work. Just remember, you should always go in and do the basic adjustment of the photo, and then you can use the tone curve to adjust the settings to a finer detail for your likings. So I hope you liked this video. If you do, please make sure to hit the thumbs up and perhaps leave a comment down below. I always like to hear what you're thinking about the videos I'm making. See you around, guys. Boy.